All right, this is the 2019 RMRC City Park Criterium in Denver, Colorado. This is the Cat 4-5 race. Got 65 guys and one Cat 3 woman in the field. Corner one, going clockwise around half of the roundabout. Corner two coming up here, we go counterclockwise around half of a roundabout. And then the sharpest corner of the race to the right onto the road here. Pretty flat, fast course, not particularly technical. Really no excuses. This should have been right up my alley. Start off well. I'm sitting right where I intended to attempt to spend most of the race, probably in 12th wheel or so here. Close enough to the front to see if there's any attacks. Far enough back that I'm not sitting in the wind any more than I have to. Pavement was a little bit rough, but no major potholes or anything like that to worry about. Just a little bumpier than ideal. Somehow my Garmin managed to drop out any power numbers just for the race. I have power from the warm-up laps and I have power from the cool down, but nothing to show you on the video today except a gigantic heart rate display and a speedometer. For anyone who is not in this race and might actually watch this, I'll give you a heads up. This is a pretty boring race. There is essentially zero attacks. Pretty even pace. Aside from the occasional goose and, run around the side of the course, which I think we might actually have coming up right here. Pretty much nothing happens. We averaged, yeah, sure enough, there's a runner that was out on the course. Freaked everyone out a little bit. Not sure how the moto didn't scare him off. But yeah, overall we averaged 26.8 for the whole race. Weren't any particularly fast laps. Final lap, we ticked it up over 30 miles an hour for one lap. There's one of our youth riders right there. We also have, along with the 4.5s in this field, we also have the 15-16s and the 17-18s. Not really much to talk about, especially without any power numbers, but looking at my heart rate, I'm sitting at 155. For me, that's working. That's right around a level I can barely hold for a race. So I think I max out in this race at 163. If I can dip down into the 140s, I'm getting a little bit of recovery. I actually did slow down a bit on this backside for a few laps. And I think my heart rate actually drops down into the 130s even, which is pretty easy. I will say I think I was pretty sheltered, so might not have been that we were actually going that easy. It's just that I wasn't really having to put in much work at 25 miles an hour and could get some good recovery. Never slowed down to the point where I felt like I could go on any kind of an attack. That's, and apparently no one else really did either. I'm not particularly an attack kind of guy. I'm more of a try to grab a wheel when somebody else attacks. But no real opportunities presented themselves, especially considering I ended up spending more and more time toward the back of the front pack. Definitely felt a little bit tense out there for how non-technical the course was. I guess just it's less technical, but the speeds were also higher. And yeah, I mean we're spending a lot of the time 7 riders wide, so so if I had power numbers, I think you would probably see me spiking up to 800 or so. Through this section is where I put in most of my efforts to try to move up in the pack. Corner gets a bit sketchy. I was pretty close to touching wheels with that guy. This many people, there's a lot of people jamming on their brakes. This corner here was particularly frustrating with the braking. I mean, when you can choose your own line, you could probably take that corner at 30. But pretty consistently had to jam on the brakes. I say jam on the brakes. I lightly touch the brakes, try to slow down as little as possible, and try not to make the problem any worse behind me, but 0 brakes is the amount I would have liked to have been using. We might have a goose on this lap, I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, guess not on this lap. So as you're seeing, sitting sheltered, 23 miles an hour, we're slowing down to. Felt crazy slow with that much of a draft. My heart rate's down to 144. That's 143. That's pretty low for the middle of a crit for me. So I'm moving to the outside, getting in the wind a little bit, moving up. This guy looks like he's gonna put in a little effort, so I jump on his wheel. I mean, that's the front right there, but you know, you're still looking at 25 guys in 4 bike lengths. It's consistently the hardest effort lap after lap in this race, in between the 2 most technical corners. Right here we've got our Cat 3 women. We've got Jessica McQuirt from the pedal cycling team. Hard to keep commentary rolling. It's pretty uneventful. Just a pretty constant rotation of riders. Just hard to stay out front at all, or toward the front. I think from everybody's perspective, so you move up, you move back. Happens fast when it's 7 riders wide. You know, you let up for a second and you're suddenly 20 riders further back than you were a second ago. It's not the most comfortable place to be in the right in the middle of a 4-5 pack, but really not too many complaints. I mean, people are really fairly consistent. That's our first lap rider. It's almost a 2 mile. It's a 1.8 mile course, so not a whole lot of lap traffic. Although in the group, you know, we are at times averaging 30. So you know, you get blown off the back, you're not going to be time trialing at 30 miles an hour by any means. Putting in a little effort here, trying to move up as I realize I'm getting pretty far back in the group. I'm back up in pretty good position, but took a good bit of work to get up here, sitting at 157 beats a minute. I think this might be Ben Gendrick's wheel I'm sitting on, the VR17. Again, probably looks like I'm maybe about 12th wheel, 15th wheel. Or maybe a little further back than that. As big as this pack is, this still felt like the front half for sure. We're all the way down to 24 miles an hour there, so these little digs may take a bit out of you, jumping back up to 30 in between these corners. Only to get on the brakes to go around that one again. Looks like this is one of the laps where we took it a little bit easier. We're only sitting at 24, 25 miles an hour. It's almost a straight shot, flat back through here. I found it surprising that no one felt this was 23 miles an hour, was slow enough to make an attack. There wasn't a ton of headwind. And with some of the corners, being able to choose your own line, you could potentially make a breakaway stick. Especially a group of 3 or 4 guys working together. I say that, and it looks like there actually is a guy off the front at this point, and we do reel him back in pretty quick. We were down to 21 miles an hour on that corner. And then we're all the way up to 28. We're a little over halfway through the race at this point. Still, the majority of the field is in this pack. One guy off the front, it looks like, up there. And geese. Doesn't look like much on video, but gets your heart rate going a little bit when everyone starts swerving. You can't figure out why until you see the goose. Yeah, not particularly fast lap. Fairly recovered, down in the 140s. You guys getting lapped again. Had some weird inconsistent slowing like that. I have no idea what we were slowing down for at that point. I mean, having to grab a handful of brakes in a straight section where we, on other laps are doing over 30, not really sure what was going on. Pretty aggressive flick out there up ahead of me, but didn't catch anyone too off guard. I think by this point in the race, my nerve and my energy are both fading, and I'm fairly content to just relegate myself toward the back of the pack. Didn't seem like there was much of a risk at this point of a split, so tail gunning felt relatively safe. I'm seeing a few riders in frame now that I hadn't seen this point in the ride, so definitely I'm dropping off a bit at this point. Yeah, 23 miles an hour back here just seems odd that with a solid group we were letting the speed drop that much. See somebody putting in an effort there, so I jumped on his wheel to try to get pulled up a little bit, but got closed down pretty quick. Definitely not the easiest race to find places to move up. So we're picking it up here to 30 miles an hour and on some of the roughest pavement because everyone's consistently racing up to the corners, trying to improve their position or maintain. Take it easy in the easy sections and go hard in the technical sections, but it's just how it goes. It's a little sketchy here. Was I believe that's Sam Shurich of Denver Bicycle Cafe. Jams himself to the inside on those corners. I had enough room on the outside to let him through, so not too bad, but a little aggressive for this far back in the pack. It's nice on the laps where I'm far enough back that I can take that corner without brakes. 27, 28 miles an hour is perfectly fine. Some gaps opening up here. I was glad I didn't have to shut this down myself. Just jumped on some wheels here, let them do the work. Because even that, it's got my heart rate up to 155. But we're back on in the group. Just in time for them to probably slow down like typical. Still got over 10 minutes left in this race. We're not really sure what was going on there. A lot of people jamming on the brakes, yelling. I didn't see anything, but that's the danger of tail gunning in a Cat 4-5 race. Further back you get, the more likely you are to be mixing it up with less experienced riders, a little less consistency. Again, getting a little close to touching wheels, jamming on some brakes. Talking to the rider who's one wheel up in front of me here with a yellow patch on his bibs. He's telling me after the race that at some point during this he got put off into the gravel, but kept it upright and got back in it. Coming up on this lap, I think, is as somebody went to grab a gear coming around this corner. Shifting was not going well, made a lot of noise, freaked everyone out. You'll see everyone flick over here, which almost puts me into the dumpster. 27 miles an hour into a dumpster would have ruined my day. So clearly tailing off the back of the pack. Jump on this wheel, hoping he puts in enough effort, but it's pretty short-lived. He grabbed us a couple of spots. It's starting to stretch out a little bit at this point. Quite a few seconds to make up to get near the front. It's just not likely. Putting in some effort here, but I'm pretty redlined. Trying to be smart. Just stay out of the wind. Not my favorite place to be at all, but I just didn't have the fitness to stay up toward the front today. Again, jumping on a wheel, trying to get towed up. But even so, putting in those efforts. Has my heart rate up 157. You could see in my shadow there, I was taking my hands off the bars. I was having a lot of problems lately with my hands going numb pretty easy on the bike. I think 10 minutes into this race, I could barely feel my fingers. Last lap, that rider's chucking out his bottle, getting ready to ramp it up. I believe we averaged 30 for this whole lap, so going into these corners a little bit hotter. Actually, I think that was me making a little call out to keep it safe just through these two, just because it's final lap. Don't want to see anybody going a little too aggressive. We've got a lot of time to move up after we get through these corners for the last lap. Trying to open it up a little bit. 32, making up some positions. This is where this corner right here, back wheel actually jumped over about a foot as I came around the apex of that. It's glad to hear behind me that I didn't take anyone out. .160 heart rate. I mean, this is all I can do to stay on. Luckily, the group's coming back a little bit. Still catching too much wind right here and not really sitting directly on anyone's wheel. Heart rate only dipped below 160 for a second. It's probably the fastest we've taken this backstretch the whole race. See some riders over there in the grass. I think as lappers, making sure they were out of the way. Can't be mad at that. And I mean, I'm working at this point, because we're coming up on, probably 800 meters out, but I mean, I'm redlined, and I'm not going to get through much of this group no matter what, so just trying not to lose any more spots than I can. There's Connor just sits up. He's not even worried about at this point. That's the race. 38th place.